Hey everybody, welcome back to Robot Butt Recommends. I'm Tim, here again with another thing to recommend to you to occupy your time as we deal with a global pandemic still. So today what I wanted to recommend is something that is actually coming up this week, is tied to something coming up this weekend, and that is Lovecraft Country. On Sunday, HBO is going to premiere a new show called Lovecraft Country. Say that 5 times fast. It's a new series starting on Sunday, but it is based off a book of the same name. And the book is what I'm recommending today, mostly because I haven't seen the show yet. I don't know if the show is any good. I hope it is. I've been looking forward to it, but haven't seen it myself. The book, though, is very good. Greatly enjoyed it. And throw things up a bit, it's been a while since I recommended a book and something to read. Reading is important for growing minds. But Lovecraft Country is a very cool, well-written piece of genre. It is very clearly going after like a pulp sensibility, but it is very conscientious of race relations and how scary racial interactions can be, particularly when you are on the bottom end of that comparison. So the book takes place in the Jim Crow South, or largely in the Jim Crow South, and that time era. And what the book does is it takes that kind of Lovecraftian cosmic horror, monsters, all that kind of stuff, and has it stand by and stand against actual horrors of racism in Jim Crow America. It marries the two very well to where the book gets a lot of tension out of scenarios where you are more worried and on edge about the human people than the supernatural beings themselves. The book itself lends itself very well to a TV adaptation because the book is structured very much like what we think of as a serialized TV show, a prestige show, where each chapter, each story functions as its own little episode, its own little arc, with its, different characters taking the lead, having a different focus, getting different insight, but they all do fit within a larger overall narrative, a larger overall story. So it's very in keeping with a lot of the serialized HBO and cable programs we've gotten accustomed to in recent years. So it's a very easy read in that regard, but the big drawing point is, again, the way it marries the supernatural horror with actual racial horror. The Lovecraft Country, which is like the first section of the book, it has one of the more memorable sequences where, yes, there's monsters in the woods and everything. We are aware of, these supernatural going-ons, but the tensest part is a cop pulls the main character and his friends and uncle. They're all black. The cop is white, obviously. Informs them that if he had pulled them down after the sun had set, that he would be well within his rights to hang them up on a tree because it's a sundown town, where blacks were not allowed to be there once the sun went down. He then informs them that the county line where they would be okay is so many minutes away, and it's unlikely they would be able to make it across the county line without speeding or committing some other infraction which would bring its own consequences. So you have our heroes driving down a highway being pursued and tailed by a cop and trying to balance getting across the border without going too fast and are, giving the cop a reason to do anything more. And that's within all of the supernatural stuff. It's great at mining those kind of interactions for tension for all it's worth. especially now as we're seeing a lot of those same kinds of racial issues play out in real time. As far as the horror and supernatural elements go, there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Don't necessarily go in expecting straight out horror that's gonna scare the pants off you. A lot of it, there's a lot of good stuff in it, but it's less, making you sit up in your chair and more kind of like Twilight Zone-esque in a sense, where it's more twists and characters realizing certain things about themselves and their situation, as opposed to, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen next, I'm so afraid. But it's still worth reading. Again, HBO is putting a show up on Sunday, and the fact that this story so well blends, social consciousness with, elements of horror. It might sound a lot like, oh, isn't that like Get Out and Us and what Jordan Peele's doing? And it kind of is, and that's probably a big reason why Jordan Peele is executive producing the new adaptation. So, very cool stuff. I've been looking forward to the HBO adaptation for a while now. Hopefully that is something that could be recommended on its own down the line. But for the time being, if you're looking for a good read, and I would even say, even though it's horror and we think of horror as more, Halloween-y, I think this makes a good summer read, since again, there is an element of pulp that it's recreating. Lovecraft Country. Give it a read. You can get it from your library. You can order it online, all the different digital places that I've talked about before, the apps like Libby and Overdrive and Hoopla. All of that stuff, you can find this book pretty easily, not hard to find. I definitely recommend checking it out, and if you read it quickly enough, you can then jump right into the new show that is starting. So, Lovecraft Country, we'll be back on Thursday with something else to recommend, and until then, as always,